In this video, I want to talk about 10 lessons that I learned after watching 15 most popular TED Talks of all times. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kulsum and I'm a freelance spoken language facilitator, so let's get started. Firstly, the idea of seeing mistakes as guide instead of hurdles was pretty much mentioned in all of the 15 TED Talks that I watched. Mark Rober in his TED Talk explained this concept by giving us an example of the Super Mario effect. Remember the game? That tiniest plumber with the biggest mustache, his only goal in life was to rescue the princess as many times as he could. And you ended up helping that person as many times as you could. So whenever you fell into a pit, you never said, "Oh man, I'm never gonna complete this game. It's impossible. I keep falling into the pit. I keep running out of oxygen when I'm reaching to the other end of the ocean." Instead, the second you did a mistake, you were more determined to complete that game. And when you played that again, you were aware that what to do exactly. Because this time, you knew that where you had to make the longest jump of your life. And when exactly you had to press the square button to get the most points while hugging the flag. All of this happened because you took mistakes as instructions rather than hurdles. And you took it with the huge amount of grit attached to it, which is another concept that is a part of overcoming mistakes mentioned by Lee Duckworth in her TED Talk. You can never say that you were naturally talented at playing Mario. No, you did the hard work, you befriended your mistakes, and you played that game ungodly amount of hours so you could repeat the mistakes and learn from them. Despite this huge support behind befriending your mistakes, we're still stuck in a system. Whether we are working in a company or in school, mistakes are still seen as the worst thing that you can ever do. Same idea that pushed us forward in life is punished in the name of grades or in the name of positions, until we start hating it to its core, which in turn deeply affects our self-confidence. So now the question is, even if we do befriend our mistakes, but how can we bring back our self-confidence? This leads to our second lesson, which is repetition is the answer to build confidence. When the head coach of a university in Canada, Dr. Evan Joseph, was asked that what is it that you try to look in the applications that come into your university? And he said that the one thing that he tries to look in every application is the skill of self-confidence. But why did he call it the skill of self-confidence and not just confidence? Because he believes that confidence is a skill that can be learned through repetitions. And I completely agree with this idea that without this skill, a person's talent, hard work, and everything that they do gets significantly impacted in negative ways, and eventually it becomes useless. And the key to building confidence is to repeat the skill as many times as possible or until it becomes a part of you. You learn to practice consciously. Because of the difficulty and novelness of the task at first, we tend to get really scared and we start to lose belief in ourselves, and eventually we lose motivation to learn it. One of the biggest problems language learners face, especially in English language, is the self-confidence to speak it in front of others. Because when you try to speak a new language in front of others, there are so many thoughts that come in your mind and that says, okay, you're not doing good, you're not doing enough, you're making too many mistakes, you will never be able to do it. And these are all the thoughts that are common in almost every student's heads. Because when you speak in front of others and you make a mistake, we see those mistakes from the perspective of permanent conditions rather than guides or instructions. So whatever skill you're learning with repetition and conscious practice, you will build self-confidence in that skill. When we do mistakes, we feel ashamed and scared. Both of these emotions emerge in our minds and increase our cortisol levels to an extent that we start feeling stress. And we think that if other people see us doing this mistake, we are gonna get disconnected from that group. If I try to explain this concept from a language learner's perspective, that's exactly why a lot of language learners hesitate to speak a new language in front of others. They close up when they speak, they put their shoulders down, they take less space, their voices go low so you can barely hear them, and they start losing belief in themselves. And we start feeling the spotlight effect, in which we feel we are in the spotlight, and instead of one person that we are talking to, the whole world is watching us. But that is not the truth. From a language learner's perspective, we need to allow ourselves to be seen when we are speaking or we are making a mistake, and still feel that we are worthy of belonging. For example, reflect back on your school life and think of any teacher you were most comfortable with and why you were comfortable with. Because she let you make mistakes in front of her. and did not make you feel that you weren't a part of the group. Because of that, you maintain your self-confidence. So if we want to learn, we need to change our perspective about vulnerability and use it to our advantage. We cannot avoid to not be vulnerable because, as Brené Brown said in her TED Talk, that vulnerability is part of learning, growing, and connection. Emotions play a huge role in learning and memory. Both Simon Sinek and Josh Kaufman mentioned emotions as the key element of connection in their TED Talks. When it comes to learning anything new, it's the emotions that help us make it relevant to our world. Let's take an example of language. A new word, a new phrase, or a new sentence. The vocabulary without context is useless. Not only that, the ability to learn is actually greatly impacted if you feel sad, happy, or stressed. To be able to learn effectively, your emotions should be in control. You should either feel happy or relaxed, and you should learn to be comfortable with ambiguity, not understanding certain parts of the skill. Similarly, if we see any advertisement, it's the story they tell in the ad that makes us want to buy that product. Because emotions in the story helps us connect to the why of the product. Apple is a great example of that. The fifth lesson that I learned from TED Talks was creativity is systematically suppressed. I remember when I was a kid, I never used to be afraid of diving into things that I didn't know. But as I became older, the courage of taking chances reduced little by little. I believe that the same thing might have happened to you too. When we were in kindergarten, we used to study subjects like drawing, colors, sports, but ultimately they vanished from your curriculum. And you only focused on your left brain, and schools help you do that. But because of the unpredictability that we just saw, requiring from us the same kind of respect and attention that we give to other subjects. We keep trying to solve multiple problems with the same solution, and sometimes even with the solutions that were created for the 19th century people. For example, the public education system that we have all over the world now was created to meet the needs of 19th century, which was industrialism. And even in 2021, we still have an entire fleet of brilliant and talented people who aren't accepted because they don't fit in the boxes that were created for the needs of 19th century. To be able to adapt ourselves to the fourth industrial revolution, creativity is a necessary skill. We need to work on building it, whether we are doing it through formal education or doing it on our own. Strategies to learn anything in any language in 6 months. We should not let schools get in the way of our learning, because there are multiple times that we come across teachers, friends, and conditions that make us question our ability to learn. In both of the TED Talks by Chris Lonsdale and Josh Kaufman, the two biggest similarities were, first, the idea of breaking down skills into minuscule and tiny parts, and second, practicing them intelligently. The major barrier of skill acquisition isn't intellectual, it's emotional. So what you can do to learn any skill is to reconstruct it into smaller parts, learn enough to correct yourself, remove practice barriers, practice for at least 20 hours so you can overcome the frustrating barrier. On the other hand, if you need to learn any language in 6 months, first of all, you need to focus on the content that's relevant to you. Start using your target language to communicate from day one. And then you increase your language input by listening as much as you can, which is called brain soaking. So you can overcome the new language deafness because your mind tends to filter out sounds that your mind does not understand. You need to train your speaking muscles as well. Get a language parent who provides you with confidence and safe environment to practice, which is what I do. There are basically around 1,000 and 3,000 words that you need to learn to be able to communicate effectively, but these words have to be learned in context, so you'll understand where to use and where not. And lastly, connect all of these words and vocabulary phrases with emotions, improving speaking skills so you can be who you are. At one point or another, we all have struggled with speaking skills. In my opinion, it is one of the hardest skills to learn because you have to practice this skill in front of other people. And in order to do that, you have to struggle with shame, being vulnerable in front of people. But the truth is that we cannot avoid it no matter what. But the thing is, despite its immense importance in professional and personal life, it's not given as much importance as the skills of mathematics or any other skill. There are 7 deadly sins that we should avoid while communicating with other people: gossiping, judging, negativity, complaining, excuses, exaggeration, and confusion of facts with opinions. Other than these 7 things, if we want to improve ourselves and speak more effectively, we need to work on certain areas of our sound. First one is register, timbre, prosody, pace, pitch, volume. By applying all of these techniques, we can definitely improve our sound and the way we want to hear ourselves. Quality relationships are more important than money, fame, and being rich. I'm not sure about fame, but sometimes we all do think about being rich in terms of money. Because with money, there are a lot of physical problems that you can solve. But aside from that, when a couple of researchers did a 75-year study of what's actually important in life, they found out that it is the quality of relationships that matters the most. They further explains that having quality relationships actually reduces physical pain, which in turn leads to less diseases over time. The lesson that I got from the talks was observe people to avoid deception. Communication is a mysterious thing. Sometimes you instantly detect when someone is lying, and sometimes you trust someone wholeheartedly even though they are cheating with you. We cannot learn to completely spot someone when someone is lying. There are certain ways through which we can detect if someone is lying or not. For example, if someone is a liar, they will start distancing themselves from the victim. Sometimes liars use qualifying language so that it would discredit the subject. Instead of fidgeting a lot, they will freeze their bodies. Instead of blinking too much or looking different ways, they will look a little too much into your eyes. There are many other ways through which we can detect if a person is lying, but only if there exists a cluster of these signs. It was a very complicated talk, but I would definitely recommend you to go and check it out. And the last lesson that I learned from the 15 TED Talks is procrastination is a part of your life. And it is by none other than Tim Urban. So basically, there are 3 people living in your brain. RDM, the rational decision maker, the instant gratification monkey, and panic monster who only wakes up when you have a deadline to complete. Then you end up doing an entire week's of work in one day, just like what I did with the script of this video. Because my instant gratification monkey told me to watch the daily dose of internet instead of writing and completing the script on time. And I feel like this is true for all of us because we can't run away from procrastination, but we can manage it. We need to accept that procrastination is a part of life, and we need to learn how to manage it instead of ending it completely. I know that when my brain actually does not procrastinate, which is like 4 a.m. in the morning, and so instead of running away from procrastination all day, I just do my work in these hours. And this is why my panic monster doesn't wake up, and my instant gratification monkey is also happy. And that's been the final lesson that I learned from watching 15 most popular TED Talks of all time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to it if you feel like it. I have put all the links of all the TED Talks that I just covered in this video in the description below. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you in the next video.